Hello, welcome to Unity Tutorial 0 Intro to Unity. So, um, this is if you're completely new to Unity, this will get you kind of rolling. Um, this little cube down here, this white cube with the black edges, that's the Unity icon. So I'm going to click on that and open it up. And if it's your first time opening Unity, you'll probably have to log in. But after you've logged in and set it all up, this is what it's going to look like. So in order to make a new project, we're going to hit new over here, and that's going to let us give our project a name. I'm going to call this Unity Tutorial Project. And you can choose where to save it. So if you click on these three little dots here, you can change where it goes. I have a folder for all my projects. And I'm going to keep it in there. It's going to automatically create a folder in this folder that's the name of your project. So this is so you can know where to find it. We're going to choose 3D, not 2D, and we're going to hit Create Project, and that's going to load this up for us. Okay. So this is the kind of the default Unity setup, and it's the one that I like to use. Uh, so if we break this down, we kind of have four main windows. We have this one over here, which is the hierarchy, and that's every object that is in our current scene. Um, so this is the scene window. It shows you kind of an overhead view of all the objects in our hierarchy and where they are in the game world. Um, so So right now we just have a main camera, which is this little icon here, and we have a light here. So the scene view is really important. It's how we kind of assemble all of our Unity parts. You can navigate around the scene uh, view here by you can right click and drag to look around. You can push in your middle mouse button and drag. So like press the scroll wheel like it's a button and drag, and that will let you kind of pan the camera. You can scroll up to zoom in and scroll back to zoom out. Yeah, and so combining those motions, you can really move around the space. So first thing I want you to do is just practice that. Get comfortable scrolling, left clicking on objects to select them, right clicking to turn the camera, middle mouse button to pan, makes a little hand appear, and scrolling in and out to zoom. So the scene window, which is this big rectangle window, has a couple of tabs up here. Yours might just have two. The important two for now are scene, which is, like I said, how we build our scene, and then game, which shows us what our game, like what the player sees. So right now, there's just a main camera and a directional light. So when we click on game, we're just seeing what the main camera sees. Which is nothing because we haven't added anything. Down here, this long empty tab is our project folder, and that's all of the things that can go into our scene. So and this is going to contain like our art. It's going to contain our scripts. It's going to have materials, textures, all the different parts that make up a video game. So we collect our parts in here, we put them into our scene, and that's how we make like a level. Some other tabs down here, there's the console tab. This is where errors are going to appear. So if our code or our game is encountering any errors, it'll let us know what's wrong down here. So this is really helpful for figuring out why something isn't working. So project, console, that's down here in this bottom window. And to the right over here, we have the inspector window. And so the inspector window gives information on anything we have selected. Assets included, and we'll get to that again. So if I click on main camera, you can see all the parts that make up a camera and what their settings are. So So a big part of the workflow is going to be selecting these objects over here and then going over here and changing values on it. So um, I can see where the light is precisely positioned and what its precise rotation is. I can affect these things here. So you see, if I change this value of rotation, you can see the light is rotating. So if I make it 100 or 10 or 0, you can see that the light rotation has changed. Another way we can affect position, these three values, position, rotation, and scale, is with our toolbar up here. So this first little icon is the position. Uh, Let's just change the position. With this tool selected, we get these arrows on whatever object we have selected, and we can drag that object around and move it. Okay, so here I'm moving this directional light. These little curved arrows lets us change the rotation. So I can grab hold of these colored lines and kind of rotate the light manually. Notice when I'm rotating the light, it's changing the rotation values up here. And then this is scale. So the scale of the light doesn't affect anything, but notice it's changing the scale values here. We'll get more into that in a moment. Those are the three most important ones: position, rotation, scale. Um, One of the most basic skills or tools we can use is adding objects to our hierarchy. Unity has a bunch of built-in objects we can add. So the first one we're gonna go to create. We're gonna create a 3D object. We're gonna create a cube, and that's gonna drop a cube into our scene right there in the middle. So a really helpful trick is, say you don't know, where the cube is. Say it's off the screen. If you double click on the cube, it will center the camera on the cube. Okay, so that's going to be really helpful. So I don't know where the light and stuff went. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reset the cube's position to 0 in the X, 0 in the Y, 0 in the Z. So I said 0, 0, 0. Now if I double click on the cube, it's right back with our light and our camera. And let's just check our game window. There's our cube right in front of our camera. So we can see if we click here that the camera is pointing towards this blue arrow, and everything that I can see is inside these kind of white lines. So we have our cube. So let's take the cube and let's flatten it out. So we're gonna click the scale tool, drag it out. So depending on which of these little handles we grab, the red, the blue, and the green, it affects a different scale value. You can also grab this gray box in the middle, and that'll do all three at once. And just notice that these scale values over here are getting affected by these different handles. So the Z is getting affected by the blue handle, the X is getting affected by the red handle, and the Y is getting affected by the green handle. So I'm making a big flat cube here. If you're ever confused about which color goes to which handle, you can see X, Y, and Z are labeled on this little compass up here, and that kind of shows us which way those values are pointed. So now that I have a big cube, I want to give it some color. And so the way to give it color is with something called a material. And materials get added to our assets folder before they get applied to the scene. So our project folder, or our project tab also has a create. So we can click create. We have a bunch of things we can create. Important ones are folder, C# script, material. I mean, they're all important, but so let's add a material. I'm going to name it blue. So when you first create a new asset, it lets you enter the name, but you can also just click on it once and click on the name once, and it'll let you edit the name again. So blue, and then so since I have this asset selected up in our inspector, we can see all the different properties of the asset. This top box right here, the albedo, that lets us change kind of the base color. So I'm going to make it blue. So when I click on that, it pops open this color window. I select blue, and then I can close that. And so now you can see that the main color is blue. You can see down here in the preview that our material is blue. I'm going to click on the material, drag it onto the object. You can also click on the object and assign the material by dragging it onto here, onto this kind of empty gray space that'll automatically assign the color. So now we have a big blue cube. Um, so what I want to do now is just add a bunch more shapes and cubes and maybe a sphere or two. To add those to the scene, I'm just going to go to Create, 3D Object, Cube, and I'm going to switch to the positioning tool, move it up. There it is. Kind of position it over here, scale it up into like a big box, and now we have like this cube here. We can create another 3D object, another cube, position it there. So now I have these two cubes. If I check the game window, you can see my two cubes and my big blue cube. Something that's really important is, after adding a bunch of cubes, this is going to start getting confusing. So I'm going to take this first cube and name it ground. And I did that just by clicking on the name and waiting a second, and it'll pop up in this little edit window. To get another thing to get you started is I'm going to import some standard assets. And so standard assets are things Unity have made for us that it's just pre-built kind of code and objects that will let us get right into making a game. So in order to do that, I'm going to click on Assets up here and go down to Import Package and import characters. And that's going to kind of unpack them and let us hit Import. And that's going to add some more assets down into our project folder down here. So just give that a second. Here we go. So here's our standard assets. I'm going to open up this standard assets folder, go to characters folder, first person character, and then prefabs. And what a prefab is just a collection of objects and scripts that are built in a certain way. We have a first person controller, and I can just drag that right into the scene view or into the hierarchy, and that'll add this first person controller prefab. So if I double click on that, you can kind of see from this green outline that it's going through our ground here. So I'm going to drag it up so the bottom of that capsule is above the ground. And then I'm also, the first person controller comes with its own camera. So I'm going to click on this main camera. I'm going to right click and go to delete. And that's going to delete the main camera. And now if I hit play, and so play at the top lets us test our game. Might take a second to load. And so when I hit play, it actually switches automatically to the game view and lets us test our game. And so you can see the first person controller has mouse look, which means we can look with the mouse. It has WSAD or arrow key controls. It has a space button for jump, so I can walk up to this cube, jump on top of it, jump from that cube up to this cube. And now I'm on top of this cube. In order to exit play mode, we hit escape and click on the play button. One thing to know about play mode is, so say I click play, any edits you make in play mode or any playing you do in the game doesn't get saved. So notice how I was on top of that cube when I hit play, but it reset. Also, if I click back to the scene tab and I move this cube over here, maybe I'll move it off and then go back to game. Now it's over here. Can't get up on it. But so if I hit play, the cube goes back to where it was. So that's a great way to play test and see if you're gonna like changes before you mess up kind of how you have things set up. Just for practice, what I want you to do is create kind of like a platforming challenge. And so the way you're going to do that is by creating 3D object cubes and setting those, positioning them, scaling them, uh, create 3D object cube, position, scale, and I'll switch back to position, move it up a little. So by grabbing the arrows, it moves it only in that direction. By grabbing these faces here, it moves it perpendicular to that direction. So if I grab the green arrow, it moves it up and down. If I grab the green face, it moves it perpendicular to up and down, so just left and right. But I mostly just stick to grabbing the arrows, just moving it left and right, one kind of direction at a time. So yeah, so we'll call this my little platforming challenge. In order to make this more interesting and clear to the player, I'm going to add some more materials. So that's down in our assets. To add materials, I click create, material. I'll name this red, and choose red from the color box in Albedo. And now I can drag red onto some of these cubes. Now I have a little red, white, and blue level. So I'm going to hit play to play test the game. Got my first person controller. Jump up here, jump up here, jump up here, and made it, just barely. And so by adding more platforms and spreading them out, you can create a nice little platforming challenge and also get used to some of the Unity basics. So just to recap, we have our hierarchy, which is all the objects in our scene. So here's our scene. This is basically a level. And it includes like this prefab first-person controller, which we imported from assets, import package characters, and then that put it in our standard assets. So you can see we have characters, first-person character, prefabs. You can follow this folder chain here to the FPS controller. So down here is our assets window. This contains all of the objects that go into our scene. So it has our materials, our prefabs. This is the scene view. It lets us position and set up our objects to increase or decrease kind of the challenge of this platforming level. We can make the ground a little bigger. Say we don't want the player to fall off the world. We have our inspector over here, which shows us information about which cubes we have selected. So if I click this big cube, you can see it has a box collider, it has a mesh renderer, it has this material here, which is blue. The game tab lets us preview what our game is going to look like. The play button lets us play test our game. And escape, play. And then we have this create tab up here to add 3D objects. I'll add a sphere just for fun. Go back to scene, double click on sphere to center it, zoom out a little bit, make it really big. So put that, just have a little hill. And green. Drag that green onto the hill, playtest. It's a great hill. Can't make it. Okay, so that's kind of an intro to Unity. When I'm done editing my scene, I can go to File, Save Scene. That's going to let me name it, so I'll name this Platforming 1. Click Save. And that's going to add what's called a scene file to our project folder, or to our project tab here. So now I can make a new scene if I want. And that will just clear out all that scene stuff. But if I want to go back to my platforming scene, I just double click on the scene file to open it up. And so that's how we make our different levels. Oh yeah, let's take a look at how this light is affecting things pretty quick. So here's my light properties. I can change the intensity, make it kind of darker, change the color, kind of a dark yellow. Change what kind of shadows, no shadows. All this stuff is useful, but it's more for effect. But anyway, that's an intro to Unity. I'm gonna Control S to save. I go to File, Save Project. We'll save everything, and I can quit. So that's the intro to Unity tutorial 0.